In this framework, we have covered automation layer. That's completely done from our side. Only one method is remaining, that is taking screenshot, that I'll take today. Then this layer, that is application layer. For that, first of all, we started different design pattern, and then we came into conclusion that we'll be working with Page Factory. And using Page Factory for an application that is Mercury Travels, we designed 3 or 4 different classes. Each class represent a page on the application under test. So you can take it further and create different few more classes and proceed with it. Then we created another layer, that is test case layer. In the test case layer, we converted all those methods which we wrote in this layer into test cases. Then for their execution, we created certain XML files. Yesterday, we also completed this reading from config properties, and we also completed logs. Then there were certain utilities which were created at application layer. There were certain utilities which were created at automation layer, and a few I'll create at test level today. Okay. So one thing is left, that is taking screenshot in automation layer. Then this test utility. So one of the test utility will be creating today, and then reports is left. Then taking screenshot will be done once we'll cover up this taking screenshot. So one thing which will be left is this data driven testing. So today we'll be covering this also, that is data driven testing, meaning testing any test case using reading the data from an Excel sheet and then executing it multiple times. Okay, so for that we need to learn how to read from an Excel sheet. So that is what I'll start with. Okay, so yeah, this is what we are left with, and I'll try to cover everything by today, but most probably these reports will be left. So reports we can take in the next class. But today we'll try to complete up at least this data-driven part, this utility, and taking screenshot part. So in our agenda, we have these 3 things. Let's see how it goes. And if time permits, I'll start with the Jenkins as well. Okay. So these are the topics which we have to cover. So most probably next week, Saturday, your frameworks will be done. And then we'll start with Cucumber. Okay. So moving ahead, uh, before I start with the Excel sheet, let's first discuss something about these streams. Okay, that is how you will read data from any file, be it Excel sheet, be it a text file, be it anything, any input file we have, how you will read data from it. Okay, so for that, Java has a package, you most of you are now aware of it, that is java.utils. Java.utils provides us many things, many utilities which we can use directly. Like one of them is reading from file. Okay, so to read from a file, Java provides us something known as string. There are many more things, like you have a reader, and then you have a scanner, but they are old techniques, and nobody cares about them anymore. So for us, the main thing which we have to read is stream. So how will I define a stream? A stream can be defined as a sequence of data. There are 2 kinds of stream. One is input stream. The input stream is used to read data from a source. That source can be anything. It can be a scanner, it can be a file, it can be any input device. Similarly, you have something known as output stream. The output stream is used for writing data to a destination. Okay, so these are 2 things. Now in this, first thing which you should know about is byte stream. What is byte stream? Java byte stream are used to perform input and output of 8-bit byte. At one time it reads 8-bit. Okay, though there are many classes related to byte streams, but the most frequently used one are file input stream and file output stream. Okay, so file input stream is to read from an input file, and file output stream is to write into a file. And what it reads 8-bit per second. It's like this. So 8-bit byte it will read in one go. Okay, so this is byte stream. Then we have character stream. So character stream is in byte stream we were reading 8 bytes, whereas in Java character stream to perform input and output 16-bit Unicode. It means it reads 2 byte at one go. That means 16 bit of data it reads in one go. Okay. Though there are many classes related to it, the two famous one is file reader and file writer. Sometimes in interviewer might ask you this question: what is difference between file reader and file input stream? Okay, so your answer should be both do same thing. The only difference is file input streams take 8-bit, that is 1 byte, whereas uh, this Java, that is this file reader and file writer, they takes 16-bit or 2 bytes at a time. So this is the difference between two. You can use any one of the two, both. Like if you have a small files which does not have very high data, maybe in maybe within 5 to 10 bytes, 5 to 10 MB, then you can directly use this file input stream. But if you have large data, then good to go with file reader. That will be little quick. Okay. Uh, Here, if you'll proceed, you will see that though internally file reader use file input stream, file writer uses file output stream, but the major difference is file reader reads 2 bytes at a time, whereas file writer writes 2 bytes at a time. That's what I was explaining you. Okay. Now, reading and writing files. How will you read and write? Okay, so as I discussed that input stream is used to read from a source and output is to write into a source. The two important streams are file input stream and file output stream, which would be discussed in this. Okay, so file input stream. This stream is used for reading data from files. Objects can be created using the keyword new, and there are several types of constructor available. Two of them are, one is this, let's say input stream. I'm creating an instance of input stream. I'll initialize it with file input stream. Okay, and you can see here I'm directly passing the name of the file. Let's say if it is Java hello, then I'm directly passing the name of the file. Okay, whereas if you don't want to directly pass the file name, then you can create an instance of a file, and then you can pass that file also into your file input stream. So this file input stream has two type of constructor. One where we are directly passing the file name, which is like string variable. I mean, it takes a string argument, that is the name of the file. And second is the file itself. So again, file is a class which is provided by java.io. Okay, so this you are passing. Okay, similarly for output stream there are two constructors, one with directly passing the file where you have to write, and second, instead of directly passing the file name, you are passing the file itself. Okay, so this is all about streams. Now I'll give you a quick example of how you can do. So let's say this is my framework, so I'll just in my input I'll create one simple text file. Let's say I create a text file, and anything I can name it. Let's say my name is Saurabh. Okay, I am teaching Selenium. So this is something we have put. Now I'll just save it in modular framework in input folder with name test.txt. Okay, so I just saved this file. Now, okay, now in the test folder, I'll create one class file, test stream, let's say. Okay, I'm keeping this public static void main checked. Okay, now here, as I told you that you can, I can create an input stream because I have to read. So I'll say input stream. Okay, let's say I name it in equal to new. Now you can initialize it with one of the stream. So there are multiple input stream. One of them is file input stream. Okay, which if you see, there are multiple constructors here. One is passing the file, and second is passing the string. Okay, so when you are passing the string, you can simply give the name of the file. Okay, so here the name of the file is this. I'll just take out. Okay, and we can replace all single slashes with double slashes. Okay, and you can pass this name directly here. Okay, but if you will observe one thing, that in this it is expected to throw some exception. Here you can see that it is saying resource leak in is never closed, unhandled exception with name file not found. So this file input stream, it is expected to throw an exception. So what I can do is I can try it, I can just cover it or surround it with try catch, where if this file is not found, it will simply throw this exception. Okay, now at the end, it's always good to close the stream. Otherwise, if it will remain open, then uh, what error it is giving? Okay, it is expected to throw in another exception. So what I'll do, I'll just change this to exception so that all the exception can be covered here. Okay, so I'll just close it, because otherwise it might leak. You are just you have just kept one interface open where you're continuously reading. So it's always good to close any stream which you are initializing. Okay, now in between you can do whatever you want to do with it. So for example, I'm saying while in dot has or next, what all methods we have. Hmm. Okay, or you can simply print it also in dot uh, read. Okay, so if I execute this code, so what does this method do? This read method, if I hover over it, what it is doing, read the next byte of read the next byte of data. Its return type is integer. What it gives is reads the next byte of data from the input stream. The value byte is returned as an integer in the range 0 to 2 this. So it will give you next byte like this. If I can, if I directly try printing this, let's see what it prints. So it is printing the object, and yeah, I'll convert it into string. And now, just a second, okay, just give me a second. Let me see what exactly was the method. Okay, so I'll read it like this. Okay, while I can say in dot read is not equal to -1. Let me just try. Okay, so what I'm doing here is no. Okay, so this printing part, I'll maybe take it later. I am not sure what exactly is going wrong here. Okay, but it for now you can just understand what I've done is I've taken whatever is there in that file into a stream. Okay, so whatever you have taken, similarly, if you need to write anything, I can take output stream, output stream. Okay, again it is you have to take one from java.utils. Okay, and it will be, let's say, out equal to new output stream, file output stream. Okay, and using this you can write in a new file. Let's say I just want to copy it and I want to write anything in this out dot this. Okay, and at the end, as just like this, you have to close this also. Okay, and let's try one thing here. Let's while in dot read is not equal to -1. Okay, let's say I'll say out dot write uh, this. Okay, it'll take int maybe some character equal to in dot read. I'll explain you. Let me just kind of complete it. So when I execute it, let me see if it creates. Okay, it creates a file, but it is not writing anything in it. What I'm doing wrong here? Okay, not sure what is going wrong. I'll discuss this part in next class. But for now, you can just understand what is the difference. Difference is that this input stream is to take input, whereas output stream is to write into it. Okay, for Excel sheet, you just need to understand these two streams. Will not be needing this part. Rest everything, there is some third-party tools which will take care. Okay. So other than this printing part, any questions in taking input and writing into it? Okay, so this is to create a output stream. This is to write into an output, and this is to take into it. Okay, so now next thing will be next thing is I'll start with that utility which is left. That utility is just a second. Let me close this. Okay, so yeah, what I was discussing, yeah, uh, in the utils, I'll create one more utility with the name Excel driver, and we will be working with, I mean, from to read from an Excel or to write into an Excel, we'll be using this. Okay, so let's discuss about some theory part, and then we'll come to this. Let me open QA Hub. Okay, and working with an Excel sheet. Okay. Okay, working with an Excel sheet using Apoy Apache. So in this tutorial, we'll learn how to integrate Microsoft Excel sheet with Selenium WebDriver. Selenium does not provide any inbuilt feature to work with Excel. So we'll take help of some third-party tools like PoyApp from Apache. So Apache is an open source organization which provides many open source utilities to us. One of them is Poi. Poi is used for uh, interacting with Excel sheet basically. Apache Po is an open source library provided by Apache Source Foundation to read and write Excel files. Essential classes and interfaces in this is so these are four interfaces and classes which you should know in POI. Okay. For rest everything you can simply search for Java docs of POI Apache and you will get all the complete information, but not much is required for us. Whatever I'll be providing you one class file that is enough to work in your real-time projects. Okay, so let's start with it. So these are the four interfaces which are available in POI Apache. First one is Workbook, second one is Sheet, third one is Row, and fourth one is Cell. Workbook is to work with the workbook. Sheet inside every workbook there are multiple sheets. So for that we have an interface sheet. Then we have row and then we have cell. Okay. Now Excel sheet can be uh, can be in two different formats. One is .xls and second one is .xlsx. This is the older version, whereas this is the newer version. Okay. The older version, for older version, the classes which are there are HSSF workbook, HSSF sheet, HSSF row, and cell. So this just add HSSF before this interface name that will handle .xls. Similarly, just add XSSF before these workbook sheet. It will handle .xlsx format. So this is the newer format, and this one is the older format. Okay. So as discussed, this workbook will be for workbook, sheet will be for sheets inside that workbook, rows will be for rows in a sheet, and cell will be normal a particular cell. Okay, so if I open any Excel sheet, I'll show you. Let's say this is the Excel sheet I'm opening, so test.xls. This is a workbook. Okay, so to directly to perform any operation on this, just a second, what happened? Yeah, so I'll just open this test.xls. So to perform directly any operation on this workbook, we have this interface known as workbook. Okay, in any Excel sheet, there are multiple sheets available. Okay, so sheet one, like this, you can create n number of sheets, right? So all those sheets which are here, to handle any of them, what we have sheets. Okay, so this is an interface. If you're working with .xls, take this, whereas if you're working with .xls, take this one. Then in each sheet we have rows. So here you can see these are the rows. 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the rows. So to work with any row, we have HSSF row and XSSF row. Then in each row there are multiple cells. So all these are cells. So to work with any cell, we have cell with us. Cell with us. Okay. Now, I have listed down all the possible methods which I think can be there on an Excel sheet, can be performed on an Excel sheet. Those are, first of all, we can create a workbook, then we can open a workbook, then we can create a sheet, we can save that workbook, save that workbook with the new name, basically save as, closing a workbook after saving or without saving, whatever you want, you can close. Then so these are some basic operations, like you'll create a workbook, then you'll open it, then you'll create a sheet, then you'll save your file with a new name and close it. Now in between this, you can perform other operations also. Like main is reading data from a cell and writing data into a cell. If a sheet already has some data, then you can read from that cell. And if your cell is empty, then you can write into it. Okay. So to read and write, you need rows. Okay, how like in an Excel sheet there can be 10 or 20 rows. So to read from that sheet, you need row number, right? How many rows are there, from that I need to read. So getting row number will be one, and from a particular row you need to get how many cells are there. Like if in a sheet there are 10 rows, each row can have same number of cells, or they can have different number of cells which has data. So we need to get how many cell has data. Okay, so these are certain methods which I'll be creating as generic methods, and you can use them. Other than that, for Selenium we might not require any, but if you may need anything new, you can just check the Java docs of POE Apache and get the method. Okay, so any questions till now? Okay, so let's start with the creating a class file. So I have created this class file with name Excel driver, and we'll be using this file to read and write into an Excel. Okay, so first of all, to read from a file we need input stream. So I created an instance of input stream. Similarly, I created an instance of output stream. This is to read from a file, and this is to write into a file. Two things are done. Then uh, you will be working with an Excel workbook, right? So to create a workbook, I just created an instance of workbook. Okay, before that, as I was discussing about POE Apache, you need to download some jar files also. Okay, so let me just discuss that also. So download, just search for download POE Apache. Just Google it, you'll get the first link. And here the latest one available is 3.17. Don't download older version, because there was a major change happened in this. Many of the classes were made many of the class files were redundant in that. Okay, so you might face some challenges. So download the latest one, that is 3.17. Here is binary distribution. So from binary you need to download. This is the source code, but we don't need source code. We need its executable files. So just download from here, download this zip version and unzip it. Once you unzip it, you will get, I'll just show you, users Saurabh Dhingra, then here workspace, libs, in library files, poi. So here is the poi, and I'll go to 3.17. Okay, 3.16 is also fine. Yeah, 3.16 is also fine. So in this 3.16, anything older than 3.16 was not working. So in this, you will get some of the default files here. Okay, then some of the jar files are there in this XML-lib, and some are there in this lib. Okay, so just go into XML, copy both of them and paste here. So here you can see I have already copied this XML beans and the other one, and go to this libs and download the first three codec collections, or these two are enough. Just copy those two and paste them here. Codec and collections I have done. Okay, now these are 3, 36, 39 and 10. These are 10 library files which you need to work with POI Apache. I repeat, some of them will be here directly. Some you will get in XML libs, copy paste both of them, and then go to this libs, copy the first two, copy paste them here, and then go to your project and import all these files. So just right click, build path, configure build path, then libraries, and import all these. So I've already imported all these jar files, and now I'm good to start with it. Okay, so once you are done with this, these workbook and all these you'll start getting. So this workbook you'll get from POI Apache only, and if you'll see which one you have to take, the one with SS. There will be from multiple, there will be from one SH also, but you have to take one from SS. Okay, so I just created an instance of workbook, and I just created one variable with name Excel file name. This is something which will be used internally to save the file name. Okay, which we'll discuss later. Okay, so I have created these variables. Now I'll start with it. So the first method which we need is creating Excel workbook. So the first method I'm naming is create Excel workbook, and we are passing the file name as the argument. Okay, so whatever file name you're passing, as discussed earlier, whenever you're working with any when you're working in a framework and you're dealing with any string variable which you are taking from an outside world, always remember to trim it. So the first step I'm doing is trimming that file name, so that if any white spaces are there at the end, that they can be removed. Then next is, whatever file name you're passing, it should not be empty. So I'm just checking one more thing. Is empty, then throw new exception, invalid file name. So here you can see I'm throwing exception. Whatever exception I'll get from here, I'll just throw it. And wherever we'll be using this file, we'll be calling methods of this file, we'll be handling exception there. Okay, so first thing, we trimmed the file name. Second thing, I did a check for empty check. Then I created an instance of file. Okay, so whatever file name you're creating, with that I just created a file. Okay, I created an instance of that file, and I'm verifying whether that file exists or not. So what this step will do, file.exist, it will go and at this particular location, whatever location you will pass, it will check whether that file exists or not. If that file exists, then it will simply throw an exception, file already exists, because we are trying to create a file which should not be there. If it is already there and it can have some important data, so I don't want to overwrite it, so will simply throw an exception, file already exists. Okay, so any questions till now? Till now what we are doing is we are trying to create a file. So first we are trimming the file name so that extra white spaces can be removed. Then we are just doing an empty check, and then uh, next is I'm verifying whether that file with that name exists or not, and then initialize that. Okay, so next is whatever file name you are trying to create. Okay, if it has an extension other than XLSX or XLS, that means it's not an Excel sheet. But we want to create an Excel sheet, right? So if it has any other extension, be it a text or anything, then we'll simply throw an exception saying invalid file extension. Okay, but if it has anything either XLSX or XLS, if it is XLSX, then we are initializing it with XSSF workbook, and if it is XLS, then I'm initializing it with HSF. Okay, so remember when we were discussing about it, we said that for XLS we have this HSSF, and for XLSX we have XSSF. So here accordingly we are initializing the workbook. Okay, if anything else other than these two are coming, then we are simply throwing an exception, invalid file extension. So we got a file, we got a workbook. Now, as we are creating an empty file, I'll initialize my file output stream with whatever file name you want to create and write into workbook and close it. So when you have not actually written anything in that stream, when you have not put anything in that stream, that means that stream is empty. So whatever will be there, it will simply will be written in that Excel workbook and done. Okay, Excel workbook dot write, whatever is there in that stream, it will write into it and close. For now, it will not have anything. So this method will create an empty workbook for you. Okay, clear? Any questions here? It might be a little confusing, so just remember what I'm trying to say here and practice it yourself. So what we are doing is, in this method we want to create a workbook. To create a workbook, first we did some checks, then I created a file to verify with that file name already a file exists or not. Then we checked that whatever file we are creating, whether it has a correct extension or not, and then just initialize my output stream. Currently output stream does not have anything, so whatever you'll have, it will write into that workbook and close it. Done. Okay, so this will create an empty file for us. Next, after creating a file, or if we have an already existing file, I want to open it. Open means reading it. Okay, so to read, I'll create this method open Excel workbook, passing the file name, and then first same thing, trim, then empty check, and then as we are opening a file, that file should already be there. So this time I'm putting an exception. If file is not there, see, I'm putting a negation sign. So if that file is not existing, then throw this exception, file does not exist. Okay, then to read, we need file input stream. So whatever is there in that file, I'll put it into file reader. Okay, and whatever file we are using in it, I'm assigning it to Excel file name. This was the variable which we created so that it can be accessed everywhere in this project, in this particular class file. So just replace that where it is. Yeah, so we'll replace that. Now this reader, whatever you're reading, it's a stream which has data in bytes, right? Remember there were 2 bytes. One was byte stream and second was character stream. So this file input stream is a type of byte stream. So it has data in bytes. Now to understand that data or to take that data in form of an Excel sheet or Excel workbook, there is a class called workbook factory. It is there in POI Apache. You're getting it from POI Apache. So you can read about it in Java docs. There is a method called create. what it will do, it takes file reader as an argument. Okay, whatever will be there in this file reader, it will convert that into an Excel workbook and put it in Excel workbook. Okay, so now my Excel workbook will have whatever you need from that reader. So now will not work with this input reader anymore. This was an interface, this was an intermediate to read from a file. Now we got everything in Excel workbook. So we'll deal with this Excel workbook now. So this is how you will open Excel workbook or actually read a workbook. Clear? Any questions till now? So you might be wondering that how I remember these methods. So these methods I have taken from the Java docs of POI Apache. So you can just go to the Java docs of POI Apache, see the examples and read and write this code. Okay. Then we got a workbook. So for now, let's say that workbook is an empty workbook. I want to create a sheet, or let's say if it already has some data, but I want to create a new sheet in it. Okay, so this method will help you in creating a new sheet. Again, I'm passing the one string argument, which will be the name of the sheet. Okay, what we are doing first, we are trimming it. Then we are checking whether the sheet name you're passing is not empty. And then uh, as discussed, there is a interface called sheet to work with sheet, right? So I created an instance of that sheet. Then next step is, it might happen that what the sheet which you are trying to create is already there. If that sheet is already there, then there is a method called getSheet. This method will give you whatever sheet you are expecting. So I just tried to get that sheet, and if that sheet is not null, that means if that sheet is already existing, I'll simply throw an exception saying sheet already exists. But if that sheet is not there, then we'll create it. Okay, so the method is create sheet. Create sheet will create a sheet for you, empty sheet for you. Clear? Any questions? Okay, so once after creating this sheet, next step will be, let's say that sheet has some data. We'll write later, but let's say it has some data and you want to know how many rows of that sheet has data. Okay, so this method get row count of sheet. From a sheet we are getting how many rows has data. So again, a trim check, then an empty check, then I created that sheet, get that sheet. If that sheet is null, I'll simply throw an exception, sheet does not exist. And then the method to get how many rows has data is get last row number. This will give you the count of the row, the last row which has data. Okay, so we got, using this method, we got how many rows are there. Okay, clear? Any questions here? Okay, next is to get cell count. Cell count means in a row there might be 10 cells which has data, or maybe 5 cells has data. So from each row I want to get how many cells are there. So I've written a generic method called get cell count, where we'll be passing the sheet name and the row number. Okay, from whatever sheet name and row number you will pass in that sheet, in that particular row, it will give you the row count. Okay, so first thing we are doing is again trim, then checking if that sheet is empty or not. If that sheet is empty, then uh, if the sheet name is, just an empty check, then I'll create an instance of sheet, get that sheet. If that sheet is null, I'll simply throw an exception. Then I'll also put an check on row number, because row number cannot be less than 1. So if row number is less than 1, I'll simply throw an exception stating row index starts from 1. Then I created an instance of row. If a sheet is there, then I created an instance of row. In that row, I got a particular row. How you can get a row? From that sheet, call a method called get row, and you need to pass 1 minus. Why 1 minus? Because row number internally starts with 0, but to the world we are saying it should start from 1. Okay, actually it starts from 0. So whatever row number you will pass, let's say you're passing 1, then internally it is taking as 0. If you're passing 2, that means internally it is taking 1. So that's why minus 1. Okay, we got that row. If that row is null, if row is null, that means that does not have any cell. So we'll simply return 0. But if that row is not null, then we'll call a method called get cell number, get last cell number. Okay, so this will give you the number of cells which has data in a particular row. So we got the number of rows, we got the number of cells in a particular row. Next will be, any questions till now? Okay, see, you need to practice it like 3-4 times, then only it will you will be clear with it. But try to understand what we are doing. Okay, just remember things, and when you'll actually do yourself, then you'll understand it. Okay, then next is get cell data. Get cell data is that from a sheet, from a particular row, from a particular cell, you want to read the data. Okay, so what we are doing, first we are trimming it, then we are doing an empty check. If that sheet is not empty, then we'll create that sheet, then get that sheet. If that sheet is not there, simply throw an exception. But if that sheet is there, then I'll check that the row number or cell number you're passing correct. If any one of the two is not correct or less than 1, we'll simply throw an exception. If both are correct, then first we'll create a row. If that row is null, as if the row is null, that means there is no cell in it. If there is no cell, that means there is no data. So we'll simply return empty value. But if that row exists, then we'll see whether that cell exists or not. It might happen that row is there, but that row does not have a fourth cell. If that is the case, then what we are doing, we're creating a cell, getting that cell. If that cell is null, again, if that cell is not there, that means I can return empty value. So I just return empty value. Else, if that row has data, then I have written some logic. Now, if your cell has data, then it might happen that that cell data has either string value or it has an integer value. So here you can see I can have a string value or I can have an integer value. See the difference. If it's a string, it is left aligned. If it is an integer, it is right aligned. That means there is different type of data, right? So in Apache also, to read that data, there are different methods. If you are reading an integer value or a numeric value, then we have a method called get numeric cell. And if you are reading a string value, then we have a method get string cell value. So I've just put a condition here. If the cell type is here, the method is o cell type dot get cell type enum. That means this method will tell you what is the type of the cell. And if that cell type is equal to numeric, then we'll simply, what we'll do, whatever numeric value we'll get, we'll convert that into string and then return. Okay, even I don't need this, or if it is there, then also it's fine. Okay, so whatever value you'll get, it will convert that into a string and then return it. Else, if it is not of integer type or numeric type, then I can simply get. Why we are doing this? Because we will be handling everything in string format. Okay, if we need it in integer, we'll convert it later. But for now, we'll handle everything in string format. So I got everything in string format. Okay. If any exception occurs in between, it will simply throw an exception. It will simply return empty value and done. Okay, so any questions till now? This is how you will read from a cell. Okay, then last is, or there is one few more methods. Okay, one of the method is set cell data. That means writing into a cell. So again, what you all you need the sheet name, you need the row number, you need the cell number, and then you need what to write. Okay, so for this, first we are trimming empty check, then null check of rows, valid row numbers. Okay, so once everything is fine, then I created a row. Get that row. If that row is null, this time will what we have to do is, if a row is null and I have to write something, that means I need to create that cell, create that row. So if that row is null, I'll create that row and then get the row. Okay. After getting the row, so either you'll directly get the row, or if it is not there, then you'll create and then get. So once we got the row, then next step will be creating a cell. So I'll get that, I'll create an instance of cell, get that cell. If that cell is null, I'll create that cell and then get that cell. Okay. So I got that cell. Now set cell value. So once I got that cell, whatever value we have, we just have to write it. So to write, we have a simple method, set cell value. Clear? What we are doing is, first we are checking that a row is there or not. If that row is there, then we are checking whether that cell is there or not. If that cell is there, we'll write. If the row is not there, first we'll create that row, then we'll create that cell, and then we'll write. So this is what we are doing. Clear? This is to set the cell data. So we have, till now what we have done is, we have written a method to create a cell. We have written a method to open that Excel. Sorry, we have written a method to create a workbook, then open the workbook, then get the row numbers, get the cell numbers, reading from a cell, writing into a cell. What all you need? You need to save your file, save as your file, and then close your file. So three methods are remaining: saving the file, then saving with a new name, and closing the file. So to save, now whatever is there in that Excel file, okay, you'll whatever is there in that writer, you'll write into workbook and close it. Similarly, then next will be saving as. Saving as means saving with a new name. So here what difference will come here, whatever the file name was, it will same with the same name. But if you want to save it with a new name, okay, I'll pass a new name, trim it, we'll check empty, and we'll also check whether it already exists or not. And this time in that I'll initialize that file writer with the new name, with the new file name, and whatever is there in that Excel workbook, okay, we'll write in that file writer and we'll close it. So this will write it with a new name. Okay, then uh, to close, we just have to close the open things. So Excel workbook was closed and file reader was closed. These two things needs to be closed. So it can be save and close. So first you'll call this and then close, or you can simply say save as and close. Done. Okay. So these are the different methods which you need to work with an Excel sheet. Just copy paste this in your project, import the PyChar file, and you're good to go. Nothing else is required in this. Okay. So any questions till now? I know many things will not be clear. So you just have to go through the recording again and again and practice it yourself. Try writing these files. First try writing looking at the file name. I mean, just copy paste it one by one. Write yourself and see from the file. Practice 2-3 times and it will you will remember it. Okay. So any questions now? Okay, so next step will be to see whether the file which we have created is actually working or not. Okay, so to before that, let's have a break and then we'll continue with that. Okay, so I just need 10 minutes of time. So after 10 minutes, we'll start again. Okay. Okay, so we can continue now. Any questions before I start? Okay then. So next is in the I'll just test it that the file which we have created for Excel sheet whether it's working fine or not. So I'll simply say demo Excel driver. Okay, I'll keep this public static void main checked. Okay, first of all I'll create an instance of Excel driver. Let's say ed equal to new Excel driver. Okay, and it will be ed dot first of all what we'll do, we'll create a new Excel sheet. Okay, so we need to put the file name. Let's say string file name is equals to, I'll give any name. Okay, and we need to surround this with the try catch block as well. Okay, so the file name I'll give will be, we'll copy it. Okay, and instead of, okay, did I copy? Yes, copied it twice. Okay, and instead of input, there is an output folder as well. So I'll just change it to output. And here I'll create one file with name test.xlsx. Okay, so I'll create this file. Now, what I did, okay, I guess I changed at some, no, it was correct, right? Yeah. Okay, so I just created this file. Now, next, after creating a file, next step will be we need to open it. So I'll call method open Excel workbook with the same file name. Okay, so it should be name. I opened it. Now after opening it, next will be I need to create a sheet in it. So I'll say ed dot create sheet, and let's say the sheet name is string, sheet name is, let's say test data. This is the sheet name. Okay, after creating the sheet, I need to write in it, right? So I'll say ed dot set cell data in this sheet, one row number, then first cell number, and let's say the value is Saurabh. Copy it. First row, first column, then first row, second column. Let's say this is second row, second column. This is second row, first. And let's say here I'm putting Dhingra, then Girish, Kumar. Okay, so I did this. That means I added it in it. After this, we need to save the file. So we'll call a save. And after saving, we need to close the file. So I'll call close. When I execute this code, and if I refresh this, you can see that in output test.xlsx is created. So if I'll open this Do we have any option to open from here? No. Modular framework output, and you can see this Excel sheet is created. When I open it, okay, I need to close the other one because they have same name. So I'll just close them. Close this. Don't save. Okay, and okay, file is already there. I just need to open it. So here you can see uh, something got wrong. Let me see what got wrong. Okay, here it should be 3132. Okay, and we need to delete this file. Okay, we'll execute the code again. And if I'll go here, open it again. This time you can see Saurabh Dhingra, Girish Kumar and Nishtha Agarwal. So that means our Excel sheet for write is working fine, right? So similarly you can test it for reading as well. Just same thing. First of all, give the name. Okay, then instead of create, it will be directly open. Then apply a for loop, get the number of rows, get the number of columns, and print the data. Okay, so this is our Excel sheet. That means our Excel sheet is working fine now. So if I go here for this data driven part, reading from an Excel sheet, I have written the code to interact with an Excel sheet. Now I need a test utility which can provide data to this test case. Okay, so for that I have written one more utility and I'm calling it data provider from Excel. So this utility I have written where we will be reading from an Excel sheet on already created an Excel sheet. So I'll read from there and supply data to the test case. Okay, so I have created one Excel sheet for you. This is testdata.excel, let's say. Okay, which has some username and password, some combination of username and password, and you can use these data to provide to your test case. Okay, now how will I do? Okay, so recall when we covered TestNG, there we covered something known as data provider. So I'll be using that data provider only here. Okay, so first what we are doing, first of all, I created this Excel sheet. In this I've created certain variables. First one is instance of Excel driver to read from an Excel sheet, then input file name, input sheet name, then these input file name and sheet name I'll be putting in the config files. So to read we need an instance of properties and then name of the file name. First of all, in its constructor, as soon as you will initialize this utility, in the constructor, first of all, will be this is the config.properties. Okay, so we are reading all the properties in config property. Okay, so here you can see in my config folder in config.properties, these are the variables I've added: input file name and input sheet name. So file name is this testdata.xlsx and sheet name is testdata. Okay, so you can see in this Excel sheet the name is testdata.xlsx and here the name of the sheet is testdata. Okay, so I'll go here now. Next is, so I got these two in input file name and sheet name, two variables. Next, uh, I created one data provider, add data provider. Okay, the name of the method is get data. Okay, what this method will do, it will supply data to the method where you will call it. Okay, and the return type of this is object of 2 dimension. Okay, 2-dimensional array it is. Now I created an instance of this two-dimensional object, then initialize my Excel driver. Okay, first of all, I'm opening that Excel sheet. Okay, getting the number of rows. So from this Excel sheet, how many rows are there? 4 rows are there. So it will give me 4 rows. Okay, it will give me 4. Okay, so the number of rows will be 4. Then number of cell in first row. So first row, why we need that? Because we need to know how many cells we are working with. So I got from the first row, I got 2. So in this number of cells in first row will be 2. And number of cell in a row, I've created a separate variable. Then this data object, I should know how many values it has. So I just instantiated it with number of rows and number of columns. Okay. Then I just used a for loop, will read from the Excel sheet and put the data in this array. Okay. So I got the cell number from a particular sheet. Uh, this this will be it will start from one number of rows, then it will start like for each row will read each cell, and whatever data will have in that cell in that particular sheet in that particular row will put that into this data array. Okay, one by one data will come into this data array. Okay, and then this data array will be supplied to wherever you have to read. Okay, I repeat, what we are doing is in this Excel sheet you can see that it's like a two-dimensional array only. First row, first column, I mean this will be like 0 0 0 1 1 0, sorry 0 0, this will be 0 0, this will be 0 1, this will be 1 0 1 1 2 0 2 1 3 0 3 1. So this value whatever we have, we are putting that value in a array, in a data array. Okay, so how we are getting, first of all, we'll initialize with row number 1 and we'll go up to the number of rows. So it will start from 1 and will go up to the number of rows. Then for each row it will go for number of cells. Then as the cell number starts with 1, but our array starts with 0, so that is why we have done -1 here. Okay, and whatever is the value in that particular row, that is for the first time it will be 1 1. So first row, first cell, whatever is the value, put that into this array. It will be a two-dimensional array, and at the end we are returning this value. So this is a simple utility I've written to read from an Excel sheet and provide to a test case. Clear? Any questions here? Again, you need to practice it, write it yourself, and things will work. Okay, so let's test this. So to test, again I'll create one demo class. So I'll say demo, what is that? Data provider from Excel. Okay, and in this I'll create a test case. Let's say the test case is public void print data from file. Okay, and how many variables you need? Username, user ID, let's say email ID, and password. Okay, so I'm just printing whatever I'll get. Okay, so here I'll simply say system.out.println user email ID is user email ID, and here I'll print password. So you need to tell from where it has to pick the data. So it will be data provider. Okay, but here as the data provider is in some other class, we need to put some extra information. So let me quickly copy that value. uh, okay, so this is the value. Okay, so data provider will be get data. The name of the method is get data, and you also need to tell from which class you will get this get data. Okay, so there is a variable called data provider class, data provider class, and you need to give the complete value to it, and the value will be where your this class file exists. So the class file exists in utils dot uh, where it is test util dot name of the class is this dot class. Okay, so this you have to provide what this will tell this method where this get method is there. Okay, so utils dot test utils dot data provider from excel dot class, this class file will provide get data, and now I can simply execute this. Right click, run as testng test. Okay, so here you can see it has executed for 4 times for all the 4 set of values. And if I show you the console, here is the values which got printed. Okay, so now you can just supply this value to your test case. Where is your test case? In com.this test in the Mercury Travel homepage. Okay, this is the other one. Here in your homepage for this particular test, you can make this value like currently it is reading from an Excel sheet from the config file. Okay, just make it parameterize and then pass that data provider, and this test case will execute 4 times. Okay, and that's done. So data driven part is also done. Now whichever test case of yours need test data, what you have to do is use the same method, pass the file name. Okay, give the file name. Like here this in this data provider I've kept this Excel sheet name as parameterized, right, as hard coded. I'm reading from config file, but that is one. So what you can do is even you can make your data provider Excel also as parameterize. Just add the string file name here. Instead of reading from directly from the um, config file, you can supply that file name, okay, at the runtime, and this will also become I mean it will become more configurable. So just move this to the argument and pass that here. Okay, so this will become a generic method, and whichever test case of yours need multiple execution, just call this method, give the file name, and it will start supplying data to it. Generic method will not depend on number of rows, will not depend on number of columns. It can handle any number of rows, any number of columns, any sheet. Okay, so that ends our data driven part as well, and we have created a test utility as well. Okay, so in our framework, this complete section here is done. What is left? One is this reports, and second is this Jenkins trigger. Manual trigger anyways we are doing, so Jenkins trigger. So in the next class, first I'll complete this interactive report. Okay, though we have a normal report coming in this testng folder, not this test output folder, where it, yeah, test output folder, we are getting all the reports in the normal format, but we'll see if we can add some interactive report or not. I mean, any external report. I'll search for something good and we'll insert that. Okay, so in a way this part is also done. I'll just look for some good reports. There is one XLTS report. If that will be available, I'll integrate that. And in the next class, we'll start with the Jenkins trigger as well. Okay, so we'll learn Jenkins and then we'll integrate Jenkins into this project. Okay, so that's all for today. Just complete this data driven part and let me know if you have any queries. Any questions now? So I'll stop the recording.